Hi there, welcome to this next video in the series about using the Corsair K95 RGB keyboard to control Studio One version 3.5. So in a previous video I said I would detail how I use the G keys, which are the ones on the left hand side. That's the bank of 18 customizable keys. So I use the G keys for the functions that I need to use all the time. So no matter which layer I'm on, these G keys are always the same. And these are shortcuts that I use repeatedly. You can see that there's 18 keys, and no matter what layer I'm working on, I have these 18 core features available at a push of a button. So the top bank of 6 keys, Gs 1 to 6, are mapped to the following functions. So G1 I've got to cut, G2 is paste, G3 is duplicate, G4 is copy, G5 is paste at original position, and G6 is duplicate and insert. So I'm assuming you all know what cut, copy and paste do, so I don't need to show off those for you. But the other functions though are the ones that you might not be aware of, so let me demo those for you. So within Studio One, which I've got open on screen, we'll first go through what paste at original position does. So I've got a demo song open, and what I've done is I'm simply just going to go to an event. So let's just go into Studio One, there we go, and let's select this vocal event here that's just been cut up. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy it. So just hit G4. Now let's say that I wanted to put it on track 9, the one below, and what I wanted to do was create the copy but put it in the exact same location as the event that we've copied. Now you think, okay, well I've copied it, all I need to do is hit paste. So what we would do, or thinking we would do, we'd just go paste. But because the cursor is not actually located at the same place as where the event was, it's pasted it at the cursor. That's not what we want. So let's just undo that. And instead of just doing the paste, let's do the paste at original position. So I've got that mapped to G5, and what that's done is it's copied the event and it's pasted it on the new track, but at the same location and the same time as the original event. So that's a good way of getting an exact lineup between events if you're copying and moving them to tracks. So don't try and use the mouse to try and line up with the original event, just use the paste at original position. So let's look at what the duplicate and insert functions do. So at the very bottom I've got a MIDI drum track, and you can see that there's a few events on there, and we've also got some spaces between the second and third events. So first of all we'll just do duplicate, and that's G3. What this does, it essentially combines copy and paste all into one. So if I just hit G3, you'll see that it's just duplicated that event. If I hit it again, it's done it again. So it's just basically fired off that function, and it's filled in the gaps between the second and the third event. I'm just going to undo that. So the difference between duplicate and insert, slight little things, but they do make a difference. So let's say that you want it to keep duplicating that drum part, but you want it to maintain that gap. You can see that there's a 2-bar gap between the second and the third event. So let's just do duplicate and insert to show you what I mean. So if I do that, you should see that it adds a new part in there, but it's also maintained that 2-bar gap between what is now the third event and the fourth event. So if you just watch again, no matter how many times I do this, it's maintaining that gap. So that's duplicate and insert. So if we move on to the next bank of keys, which is G7 to G12, I'll just go through those for you. So G7 I've got mapped to mute, pretty self-explanatory. G8 I've got to solo, I use that a lot. G9 is data zoom in. G10 I've got the global mute on and off. And G11 I've got global solo on and off, and then G12 is my data zoom out. So let's have a look with what these do. I'm assuming you know how to mute and solo tracks, so I don't need to discuss those. But let's say that I've got multiple mutes. Maybe I want to mute that track, and that track for some reason. And then what I want to do is I want to just turn all those mutes off. So my G10 key is global mute on and off. So it's got rid of all those mutes even in one key click. So straightforward, really simple. The global solo does a similar thing, so I don't really need to show that one. Data zoom is an interesting one. You've probably used this before, but if you haven't, what it does, if you look at some of the events on the screen, is actually it increases the view of the waveform. I keep clicking here, and you should be able to see that the waveform is getting bigger on the events. And also then G12 is the reverse of that, so it's data zoom out. So I just keep clicking. Now this doesn't alter the volume, doesn't make them any louder or quieter. It just basically zooms in the view, so it makes it easier for you to see them. So the next set of keys, G13 to G18, I've got mapped as such. So G13 toggles the snap. So if you look back on Studio One, there you go, on and off. So that's for the quantizing, so that thing's snapped to the grid. So that's a fairly easy one. G14, I've got fit timeline to contents. Now that is basically, if I fire it off, you should see that all these events now fit on the screen. So there you go, it's changed the view. Everything that is part of this song is now viewable even, all on one page. Whereas before you had events going off the page. G15, I've got loop follow selection. And if I turn it off, what happens is if we're on an event, let's go over here and just select one, there you go, and I move between the events, you should see that the loop, no matter where I am, is still in the same place. So we've got 3 events here, and I'm moving between those events, yet the loop stays stationary. If I turn it on with G15, you'll see that already it's gone to the event that's selected. So if I move to the previous event, you'll see that the loop is following it, and same again. So loop follow selection is, as it sounds, the loop function follows the selection. So whatever is selected, the loop will map to it. So G16 I've got set to auto scroll, and that is again one whereby if you're playing your song, and sometimes you might notice that the cursor gets to the end of the screen and then disappears, and you can't see everything else. That's when you need to turn the auto scroll on, so that no matter where the cursor is, the screen keeps up and it follows with it. And then G17 and G18, those are the ones that I use all the time. That's undo, so G17 is undo. And you can see it's already undoing some of the moves that we've done in this song. And then we've got G18, which is mapped to redo. So you can see I'm just redoing those bits, so undo and redo. So I use these functions all the time, so if I just switch to another layer, like M2, you'll still find that those functions are still mapped to these G keys. So for instance, my mute, you can see it's muting on screen. Solo, there you go, that's doing mute again. Data zoom, and that's on layer 2. If I switch to layer 3, again, let's maybe just try data zoom. You can see it's doing that. Undo, redo. So these are the functions that I use all the time regardless of which layer I'm on. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them below. And thanks for watching.